So now let's talk about the structure of a general flower, or more specifically, an insect-pollinated flower. If we look at the diagram of a flower, we can see both its reproductive parts and the supporting structures that help it function. Starting with the female reproductive part, which is called the carpel or pistil, this is found at the center of the flower. At the top is the stigma, a sticky surface that catches pollen grains. Below the stigma is the style, a tube-like stalk through which the pollen tube grows to reach the ovary. The ovary is the swollen base of the carpel that contains the ovules. After fertilization, these ovules develop into seeds, and the ovary usually becomes the fruit. Surrounding the carpel are the male reproductive parts, called the stamens. Each stamen has a top part called the anther, which produces pollen, and a filament, a thin stalk that holds the anther up. Together, these structures ensure the pollen is available for pollination. In addition to the reproductive parts, flowers have supporting and protective structures. Petals are often brightly colored to attract insects like bees and butterflies, and collectively they are called the corolla. Sepals are leaf-like structures at the base of the flower that protect the bud before it opens, and together they are called the calyx. The receptacle is the thickened part of the stem from which all the flower organs grow, and the stem, or pedicel, supports the flower and connects it to the rest of the plant. Altogether, these structures work in harmony to help the flower reproduce and ensure successful pollination. So, each part of a flower has a specific role that helps the plant survive, adapt, and reproduce successfully through sexual reproduction. The sepals form the outermost layer of the flower and protect the developing bud. They prevent damage from drying out or physical injury and are usually green and smaller than the petals. The petals are often bright in color and sometimes scented, attracting pollinators like insects. They guide these pollinators toward the reproductive parts of the flower, helping to ensure that pollination occurs successfully. The stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. Each stamen has a stalk called a filament that supports the anther at its tip, where pollen is produced. Some flowers, like the tea flower and sacred lotus, have many stamens, while others, like the tulip, have only a few, often matching the number of petals. The anther is responsible for producing pollen grains, which contain the male gametes, and each anther has 4 pollen sacs where pollen develops through cell division. When the pollen grains mature, the sacs split open to release them, making them available for fertilization. Meanwhile, the filament is a thin stalk that holds the anther in the correct position to ensure effective pollen transfer, and by keeping the anther exposed, it increases the chances of successful pollination. Furthermore, pollen itself contains the male gametes, and in insect-pollinated flowers, pollen grains are usually produced in smaller quantities and are often round, sticky, or covered with tiny spikes to help them attach to the bodies of insects. In contrast, wind-pollinated flowers produce large amounts of smooth, lightweight pollen that can be carried easily by the wind, and large quantities are necessary because only a fraction of the pollen is likely to reach another flower of the same species. Then, the carpel is the female reproductive part of a flower, and some flowers, such as buttercup and blackberry, have multiple carpels, while others like lupin and hibiscus have only a single carpel, because each carpel is made up of an ovary, a style, and a stigma, working together to enable reproduction. The stigma is the sticky top part of the carpel, and it plays a crucial role by catching and holding pollen during pollination, which allows fertilization to take place, so the pollen can reach the ovule. The style connects the stigma to the ovary, and it serves as a passage through which the pollen tube grows to reach the ovule, while styles can vary in length depending on the species, being short in flowers like wallflower and long in flowers like daffodil, which ensures efficient fertilization. Also, the ovary is the swollen base of the carpel, and it contains 1 or more ovules, so after fertilization, the ovary develops into a fruit, which in biology is defined as a fertilized ovary that may or may not be edible. Inside the ovary are the ovules, and each ovule contains a female gamete or egg cell, so after fertilization, the ovule develops into a seed. Some ovaries have a single ovule, like in blackberries, while others contain several ovules, as seen in wallflowers. And the receptacle is the expanded tip of the flower stalk, and it serves as the point of attachment for all flower structures, so in some plants, after fertilization, it becomes fleshy and edible, as in apples and pears.